Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Two World Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jacob, and I have with me today my other co-host, who is...
I am Barney.
And Barney and I are so excited to talk with you today about something that we were able to enjoy recently, the Nintendo Museum in Kyoto that pretty much newly opened a few months back. And we have a lot of perspectives to share with you about what it was like to get tickets, to travel to the location, to tour the exhibits, to do the interactive activities, and also to go through the gift shop. So get ready, sit back, relax, and join us as we give you this overview of our experience at the Nintendo Museum. And hopefully it will be something that would be interesting for you. And if you're ever considering going there, maybe you'll get a few tips or insights from our time. So just to get us started, Barney, can you let us know a little bit about the journey of even getting tickets to go to this Nintendo Museum? It'd be nice for our listeners just to even hear about that process.
Yeah, I think it opened in October of 2024. So I think, like you say, just about half a year that it's been open. And I didn't want to find out too much about it because I wanted to have some mystery involved, but I was really a little bit concerned about how getting tickets could be, because the last thing I wanted to do was to mess something up on a technicality. But it looked straightforward. It looked like you have to have an account, like in a Nintendo account, and then you just go to the webpage. And I think from 3 months before the date that you want to go is like when you should sign up. So in our case, we wanted to go in March, and then so 3 full months. So then in December then is when I think you and I did the application, and then it was nice. It's real straightforward. They have, once you go to the thing that says like register for drawing for tickets, I think, then you check the day that you want, and then they have it. You can do up to 3 preferences, and it's divided by half-hour segments throughout the day as to when you could get in. And then I chose 3, and then I think you and I both chose 3 different ones.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's right.
then you complete the registration. But of course, you don't pay unless you get selected, and you have to write in everyone's name. And my account, I was using a Japanese account, and then so I had to write everyone's name in the katakana, the kind of script used for writing non-Japanese names with addresses and I think phone numbers and whatnot. Was that the case for you, or did you just write everything in English and Roman script?
I just wrote everything in English. And yeah, I was logging in with my Nintendo account here in the United States. So I think it just defaulted to English for me when I was entering. Yeah.
And then we waited.
Yes.
Yeah.
It was so interesting because I thought, well, hopefully with 2 of us applying, at least one of us will get the tickets. And fortunately, that's what happened. I didn't get the tickets. So but we were kind of hedging our bets by both applying. And so Barney, you did it.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about that today, and I thought, I don't know, maybe it's because, we were registering in December, and there's the Christmas season when we're registering, and then you were coming to Japan, so there's a real big event to look forward to. So it felt really special to me. It felt really special. So since it felt so special, I thought, I just had this thought in my mind. Of course, we're going to be able to get tickets. I thought probably you and I will both get selected. But yeah, it was January 1st then. So you register 1 month, and then the first of the next month is when you find out. And they do one thing that's nice on the website. They do say it won't be at midnight. I'm curious about the process because, like, I think it was around noon my time here in Japan when it finally we got the result. And yeah, I got that great email that said, you've been selected. And then I zipped over and purchased those tickets, and then let you know, and then you could finalize, work more on finalizing your plans for coming.
So for our listeners, just kind of reiterate, you have to plan ahead to go
Yeah.
to the Nintendo Museum, and 3 months ahead most likely is what you need to do to get tickets. They do mention on the website if people cancel, you can try to get tickets later on a first come, first served basis, but that would be a lot harder. What would you say, Barney, about the cost of admission?
Yeah, it's surprisingly low. When I think about I'll just say this in terms of yen. So here, like, if you want to go to Disneyland, which is actually separated to Disneyland or Disney Sea, it's kind of like Disneyland California, but split into two places. It could be like on a busy day, like on a weekend or a holiday, it's like 10,500 yen. And then Orlando Universal Studios in Osaka, if you want admission plus like Fast Pass plus admission into Nintendo World, it's like 40,000 yen. But Nintendo Museum for one adult, 3,300 yen.
Wonderful. Yeah,
Yeah.
very affordable
Yeah.
for what you get. So
Oh,
that's
yeah.
nice. And I would love to share a little bit of a just subtle side story here to
Mhm.
admission. When Barney was applying for the tickets, I didn't tell him that my wife Katie's legal name is Catherine. So her passport would say Catherine and her ID and everything that she would be carrying. So we get to the Nintendo Museum, and Barney and I had kind of talked about this ahead of time because
Mhm.
he had put her, kind of preferred name, Katie, on the ticket. And Nintendo says on the website, your
I know.
ticket name has to match your ID. And so we get in line, we get up there, and then the person's like, "Oh, Katie, what type of is that like a nickname?" And we're like, "Oh, yes." And he looks and sees Catherine on our passport. So we have to go off to a second window off to the side and and they straightened it out. They did get
Mhm.
her name is Catherine on the ID, but just for our listeners, if you're getting tickets, make sure you use your legal name, the one that will be on your ID
Yeah.
instead of
Mhm.
and that Barney, you could not have known that. I had never mentioned that to you before, but
Yeah.
we worked through it and it was good. So,
And the
s
person who worked with us was so nice.
he was, yes,
Yeah.
and he was gonna be going to Los Angeles, I think, for a
Yeah.
visit relatively soon, and so he was asking if we had any ideas or suggestions, and so that was kind of fun to talk with him about
Mhm.
that. Well, let's talk a little bit about the journey to the museum. We
Mhm.
went by train from another part of Kyoto to where the museum is. So, I have a few pictures from along the way that I wanted to
Mhm.
share, and then I'd love also to get your thoughts.
Yeah.
Just as a side note, as we were going along, we did see a few buildings that had
Yeah.
Nintendo written on them,
Yeah.
and as I understand it, Nintendo's corporate headquarters now and where their development teams work are at those buildings that we saw when we were going by. And so the location for the museum is actually an old warehouse location that they had
Mhm.
formerly used
Mhm.
years ago that they've now transferred over to being this wonderful museum. But along the way, there were some interesting things, and I just want to share a few of those. First off, the train station that we arrived at for the stop where you can get off to go to the Nintendo Museum has this wonderful display. Is it coming up on your end, Barney?
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it says Nintendo Museum, and then a little disclaimer: tickets must be purchased before you visit.
Uh,
No tickets are sold at the
yeah.
museum, just to
Yeah.
remind people. But then on the left, it has a picture of the outdoor building, and on the right, it has a picture of the top floor of the museum
Oh,
with
right.
the
Right.
historical exhibits.
Mhm. Mhm.
So we'll get into that a little bit later. But anyway, from the very moment you're getting off the train stop, you see, oh, there it is.
Yeah.
If you're going there, it's kind of exciting. And then as you're getting off the train stop, they have a special sign, turn this way towards the Nintendo Museum.
Mhm.
And I don't know about you, Barney, but my excitement just kept increasing. And then, you're going through the neighborhoods and you turn a corner and then you see the building. And that's what I have a picture of
Mhm.
here. And
Mhm.
it's a really nice modernized looking building. They've restored the outside really well and put some nice lettering on there. And so my first impression when I saw that when we turned the corner and saw the Nintendo label in the museum building. It was just, "Oh, there it is, we're getting closer." And then as you get in line, you see a little Mario sliding down a flagpole. And I have a picture of him here, and I think that's just perfect that they chose
Mhm.
to integrate that into that. When you're waiting, you can see that around the corner.
Mhm.
And I felt like security was actually pretty they were quick, but it was also thorough. They were scanning
Mhm.
everybody's bags and double checking things before people enter the museum, so very thorough. And then when you come through that security line, you see the buildings and this wonderful foreground where there are large mosaics of
Yeah.
mushrooms and stars and coin blocks and coins and enemies from the first Super Mario Brothers game.
Mm.
So wonderful pixelated images there, and, it's a really neat way to enter. It's kind of full of Easter eggs, and you see warp pipes and different places everywhere that you can walk up to and take pictures next to. Here's a picture of Barney where I think I don't mean to speak for you, Barney, but I think we all were just pretty excited. So you'll see a
Oh,
lot of
yeah.
smiles on in these photos
Yeah,
because
that's
it's
a
just
good way
like
to put it, yeah.
once you finally get in, it's just that anticipation builds, and then here's another Easter egg. The manhole cover
Mhm.
is Pikachu from the Pokemon game, and behind him is a Game Boy. He's leaping out of the Game Boy, and it's kind of fun that they even have that touch even on things around
Mhm.
the location like that. So, and then I should probably I'll say something about this picture, then I'm going to hand it over to you, Barney, because I don't
Mhm.
want to keep talking here. But pretty soon, as you're getting into the museum, this is on the lower level where there's a
Right.
lot of interactive exhibits, but you start seeing lots of information about Nintendo products, Nintendo consoles, and you find out Nintendo wasn't just a video game company. And
Mhm.
we'll talk more about that as we go through. But they started out making playing cards, so we can explore what those cards were, and they also made toys and different things throughout the years. So but, the pictures that I have are from the lower level of the museum and the gift shop and the outer grounds. They didn't permit pictures on the
Right.
top floor of the museum, which is the more, historical, section. So, we won't be able to share any photos from there, but I'm gonna stop sharing for a minute and give you a chance, Barney, to respond. What was it like for you as we arrived at the museum? What are some of your thoughts? Do you have pictures you wanna share? Yeah, maybe you could unpack that.
Yeah, I have a coworker, 2 coworkers, but one was on maternity leave, but I have a coworker who is from Kyoto, and the train line that we take to get there is the Kinetsu line, and the station that we get off at is Ogura Station, and just 3 stations away from there, further down on the line, Okubo Station is my coworker's station. So she's like, when I told her we're going there and at Ogura, and she's like, "Are you sure it's Ogura? There's not much there." And and I said, "Yeah, that I'm pretty sure that's what it is." And she's like, "This is just blows my mind. It's so weird that you're going to be like just right next door to my hometown, and where my house is." I was like, "Okay, I'll be sure to drop by and say hello." But for me, then, like if I'll just share one picture here, one thing that got me excited. You had the up close of this, but I like how it's like everything going on here is just every day that we see, and then like this is a typical train sign, and sign at a train station you would see, and it just happens that Nintendo Museum around the corner is right there, and it feels like wow, like this is pointing to something pretty special and get ready. And so I was really excited too, but I like how just the area is just so quaint
Mm,
and it's not
mhm,
it's not taken over, it's not run over, it's not being everything everywhere is Nintendo. It's just this happens to be the train station where the museum is. Everyone else around there is just living their lives, running a business, doing what they normally do. And then it just so like here's just a standard everyday train sign, but the Nintendo Museum sign is also there. And when we went through the after security, then it's nice. It's also really nice. Since it's limited per how many people come, and then people come during certain time frames, certain windows. So it never gets backed up. They had a lot of neat things that you could pose for get your pictures taken at, but it wasn't a real long wait. And it was, Brian mentioned that, like, one nice thing you mentioned about that they have like security in their lockers, and I was carrying some donuts with me, and they said, "Is that food?" And I was like, "Yeah." And they're like, "You should put it in a locker." And I thought, oh, you know what? I really don't want to carry this around with me. So that's good, that they have the locker there. And then, you put in 100 yen coin, and then you get it back when you return the key into the locker. But yeah, that's nice that you don't have to, they make those available for you, that you don't have to feel like you carry things around with you. But so then when we were in line for like the first place to get your picture taken, I watched the staff, and she was like, she would wait until people were posed, but while they were posing, she was like spamming the picture button. She was really taking lots of photos. So I thought, oh, I can kind of use this to my advantage. So if I can share some photos of us here, they had this nice little area
So
here, some warp pipes, and a question block, and a block with a mushroom coming out. And so I just thought, okay, well, I'll pretend that I'm getting in the warp pipe, and going down the warp pipe, and
that's
then
my favorite picture right there.
I
Your
love
hands are
that one
straight
too.
up.
I, I I really like that one. And yeah, so in this picture, then Jacob is hitting the question block, and then Katie is doing a nice pose, and then I'm acting like I'm going down the warp pipe that they have set up there. And then I thought, since she's tapping the photo button so much, I wonder if she can get a picture of me jumping in the air, trying to grab the mushroom. So then she got it.
Oh,
And I thought, oh yeah, it's perfect. I'm jumping. It looks like I'm getting the mushroom, and
uh,
great. And then of course Google Photos took over, and then they put like all of her pictures together in a
no
little animation.
way.
Yeah.
I love
And so
that.
yeah. So that's so fun.
That is so cool.
That's yeah. And and then I wondered if you and I would have some overlap, because, in our photos that we're sharing, and this is the photo that you shared just a little
Yeah.
bit ago, because it's so neat how they can take the same theme of gray, everything's in grayscale, and use darker shaded and lighter shaded and kind of whiter shaded tiles, and put them together and make all this nice art that is really fun and just really appealing in every way. And
Oh,
and then
yeah.
that's before you even get in to the museum. And I had the Pikachu manhole cover too, and that's because in Japan, like, you can find a few books, online or whatnot, about different manhole covers. So it's kind of a tradition to have these stylized manhole covers
Okay.
throughout different areas of Japan that kind of represent the city that they're in. So that's kind of that Pikachu one. And I saw later that I think that there is a special hotspot for Pokemon Go in the museum, and it might be
Ah,
it might be at that Pikachu cover maybe.
okay.
So yeah.
That's great, Barney. Thanks for sharing that. I was wondering, maybe, do you mind if I share a picture of at the entrance how there were the toads?
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
when
yeah,
you
yeah.
at the very opening of the museum, and I'll try to pull this up here. I'm just getting to the photo here, but there are a lot of musical toads, and you can
Mm,
stand behind them and get your picture
mhm,
taken.
mhm.
And let me see if I can. Oh boy, it keeps when I go to it, it starts my pictures over here.
Oh, yeah.
Just gotta.
Yeah, that was kind of like the second kind of staged photo op area, and the staff there that we had was real nice, and she was real accommodating for us. And it's funny because she at first she did the video, she switched to video. Maybe I had it on video, and then she took a little video, but my image was, I thought, what fun thing can I do here? And like, kind of the thing these days is like, in games, people like jumping on top of Toad's head. I don't know why, like, with your character. And then so I thought, oh, what can I do? So I started like bashing the head, but but they are real nice.
What when you touch them, yeah, they each have a different, like, subtle variation in their voice and that la 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 la. So here's a picture of us all standing there with the
Uh-huh.
toads.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then you got some really interesting additional pictures just by the entrance here. And let's see if I can get some of those. Oh, we've already seen that.
Mhm,
Sorry, it'll just take me a second here.
mhm.
Oh, did you have one of that wall mosaic?
Oh, yeah, that, like, has all of the yeah, like, right when you get in, I can let's see, I have to back out a little bit. One well, we might be sharing off and on a bit here. One photo that was neat was the little hand-drawn, maybe a signature by Miyamoto, and it was already in 2023 on June 28th that he signed his name there and then drew a little picture of Mario and then had a little star there. And then I'll have to find it because I didn't necessarily set it off to the side, but another neat thing that you were mentioning is when you're lined up and waiting, like
I think I got it.
you got it? Uh-huh.
Yeah.
They have an area, there you go, yeah, where you have to hear kind of the, the rules, how what to do, the do's and the don'ts of the museum, and then while you just when you enter there, it's all those like you said, you can go ahead and describe it probably really well for us.
Yeah. So it's a bunch of tiles of different sizes, and they have basically a whole history of Nintendo characters represented by each panel, having its own unique individual character on them. So you have
Mhm,
the Pikmin characters, Splatoon, Mario characters, Donkey Kong, and then smaller series like F-Zero
mhm,
and Star Fox. And they
mm.
even have art styles going back into like the early 80s. Like I see some depictions of Mario there and then really early art style. And they have some subtle characters that you wouldn't expect. They have the crab from the original arcade
Oh,
Mario
yeah.
Brothers
Mhm.
game. They have the Majora's Mask, the mask from that
Mm.
game. Oh, they have the characters from there was this light gun game called
Oh,
Hogan's
yeah.
Alley. They have
Yeah.
those characters.
Yeah.
They have Zero Suit Samus and
Mhm,
then Samus in her regular Metroid outfit. It's just for a Nintendo fan, it's just a fun mural to look at, and it's filled with history and characters. It's just why you're hearing the instructions. You can just kind
mhm,
of let your
mhm,
gaze wander around. And so I'm glad you captured that, Barney, and you caught these panels too that are zoomed in a
mhm.
little bit, which is fun. So yeah, pretty special. Oh, the
Yeah.
ducks from Duck Hunt are on there.
Right. And then
Yeah.
that guy from, like, the Nintendo training, I'm not sure if the guy in the middle there with the black hair and the glasses,
Oh
I think
yes,
who it was actually quite popular
Brain
in
Age.
Japan on the oh, okay.
That's what
Mhm.
they called it in the West. I don't know what
Okay,
its
okay, okay.
release
It
was in
was
the.
yeah, right, kind of like a trainer thing. Oh, okay, yeah. It's so fun that it's interesting to think of what they chose and how, and, like, I forget the name of the game, but in the bottom right corner, the woman with the kind of really, really blonde, almost white hair is a
Oh
very,
yeah,
very recent game, I think, isn't it? And,
yes. I'm
um,
trying to remember. Let's see. That's not Xenoblade, is it?
mm,
Is it an RPG? Do you know?
yeah, it is some kind one of
Uh,
those RPGs, yeah.
oh, it's like on the tip of my tongue here.
Mhm.
Ever something. Let me see. Oh well, it'll come to us here.
Right, before the end of the show today. Yeah, I
Uh,
can see it. I can see it. I saw it just the other day at Book Off. I know what it is, but I just can't bring it to mind. But just which, they like you say, they've got a good mix of old and new and, kind of,
is it Bravely
like
Default?
might be.
Okay. Anyway, please go
Yeah.
ahead.
Yeah, but I mean, even like, Daisy playing tennis, it's not necessarily the biggest hits or the biggest hits for each character that they put in there. So I really appreciate that the
Oh,
way
for
that they
sure.
represent kind of everything there.
Yeah. Well, now that we've talked about our f- first impressions when we arrived, some
Mhm,
things that we saw initially, can we talk a little bit about the interactive exhibits?
mm,
Because this is something that I knew going into it, I really wanted to
Yeah.
explore. And we spent a good deal of time there. And
Mhm.
so each entrance card that a person gets when they go to the museum has
Mhm.
10. I don't know if it was called coins or points. I'm trying to remember.
I
Do you
think it was
remember?
coins. I
Points,
think it was
10
coins.
coins. And you can't refill it. So that's all you have for your visit, 10. And
Mhm.
then so each interactive exhibit will cost a certain amount of coins. So like in one case, there was a little station where you could play retro games, and that was only 1 coin.
Right.
But
Oh,
then
yeah.
if you hold like and at another point, they had these giant controllers from consoles, which Barney and I, enjoyed doing
Mhm.
several times. So I think those cost 2 coins each
2
time.
coins per. Yep.
There was a light gun game that neither of us ended up doing because there was a huge line for it. I don't know if you saw that,
Yeah.
but I think that one might cost three or
4.
four.
Yeah.
Four. So
Mhm.
you kind of have to be wise about what you do. I
Yeah.
really recommend the giant controllers. They were a highlight for me, and we'll share some pictures of what those look like.
Oh, yeah.
A giant Wii remote that requires two people to hold, or a giant Nintendo Entertainment System controller where one
Mhm.
person does the D-pad and the other does
Mhm.
the A and B buttons. That was great. I loved the Wii balance board that two people
Yeah.
do. That was one of my
Mhm.
favorite
Mhm.
experiences.
Yeah.
So, and then in addition to that, we will share those pictures, but also they have batting cages with like
Mhm.
rooms decorated in the style of like the 80s or not early
Mhm.
90s. And then as you hit the balls and they hit various objects around the room, they'll activate different motions. And it's just a fun activity. I would also recommend that. And so they had Ultra Hands, which are this early toy that Nintendo designed that you use as a way to reach out and grab things that are
Mhm.
out of your reach. They can extend out, I don't know, maybe 4 or 5 feet, something like that. Maybe not quite that far, maybe 3 or 4 feet. And so in that case, you could use an Ultra Hand to get a Pokeball and drop it. And we didn't end up
Yeah.
doing that because there was quite a
That was
line
a
for that.
quite a big line too, yeah.
Yeah, but I would recommend the giant controllers
Oh,
and
yeah.
definitely the batting cages. Those I and
Yeah.
the yes, please.
In one of the pictures that you shared where they kind of have a rundown of some of the items, a little bit of the history. Like they did show you had a picture and it had like the ping pong. It kind of looks like a pitching machine, but it's filled with ping pong balls. And then that was the batting cage one, which you have a nice little foam bat. And then yeah, they have like 5 or 6 of those,
Oh,
so there's
I
never
can
a
pull that up if
wait.
you want right
Uh
now,
huh.
Barney. Let's
Hmm.
see. It should come up here in just a moment.
Yeah, so in the bottom left of the display there is that kind of ping pong ball, and then they have really small bats, but we got to use real big foam bats, and then right above that, like you said, is the Ultra Hand, kind of like an extendo grabber thing, that that you could do. But yeah, we saw people doing that. It looked like fun, but yeah, that was a real long wait too.
And maybe we could highlight for those two items the Ultra Hand. Right below it has the date 1966. So
Right.
we can tell already before Nintendo was developing video games, they were a toy company, and we'll find out before they were a toy company, they were making playing cards. So
Mm-hmm.
their history goes back quite a ways. So the Ultra Hand was in 66, and then these batting machines came out in 68 for an early version and then 77 for an updated version.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that they kind of have been in the entertainment industry
Mm-hmm.
in a different
Mm-hmm.
forms before entering video games. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yeah.
so that was neat. Since we mentioned the playing cards,
Right.
and Barney could probably pronounce this better than me, but I understand that in Japanese they're called hanafuda, which are
Right.
flower cards.
Mm-hmm.
And here is an example of a deck that Nintendo made, but this one, instead of just the traditional flowers or banners or designs, you actually have Mario characters
Yeah.
in the artwork. So it's kind of fun because it takes something they made earlier and then it infuses it with something they did later with the video game characters. So, but all throughout the lower level, there were these display cases full of Hanafuda cards, which is really interesting. So another part of Nintendo's history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then right beside that was a display case that had representations of all the consoles they made throughout the years. And I'm showing some of those slides now. Here are some of the most recent consoles, but then it works its way back to earlier consoles, handheld and home consoles,
Mhm.
all the way back into the beginning in '81, where
Uh-huh.
they have their Donkey Kong arcade
Oh,
panel
yeah.
there. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. So the interactive exhibit had all throughout these displays. So there is history on the lower level too that they let you photograph and
Right.
read about, but but really most of that is upstairs in the upper level. So yeah, are there? Can we share a few photos about the
Oh, yeah.
interactive section?
Mhm. Mhm.
One thing I enjoyed doing. Katie was with me, and so we did this. I'll pull it up here. This thing that they had called a love tester,
Yes, yes, yes.
and each person grabs one of the little I guess you could call them controllers. They're just like
Right.
discs,
Mhm.
and they help, guide you through, and you do motions with them. And so when Katie and I started, it measures your compatibility at first. And here's the
Yeah.
picture, and it says, "Oh, you're at
There was
42%." But then
right.
as we
I
continue,
think it said you guys have potential.
we had potential.
Yeah.
But then as we continued through it, you have more and more fun. And here's a picture of us, doing different things. And,
'Cause
you
it
know,
did say it says you have to hold hands
yeah, you have to hold
in the middle,
hands.
right? And then, yeah, in your picture, you're holding hands the whole time, which was so fun.
Yeah, and so then we did eventually make it up there to, like, 120% or something like
Mhm,
that,
mhm, mhm,
by the end. So I have some more pictures of that later, but I'll stop sharing
mhm,
now and turn it over
mhm.
to you, Barney. So, yeah. So what were your thoughts when you were doing the interactive exhibits? Did you like the big controllers, and what did you think of that?
Yeah, that was such a neat idea to have that. I didn't know what to expect. I've been to the Tokyo Video Game Show a few times, and that's a case where, you line up and you have the chance to play a new game or an upcoming game, but, you just play it the way it's meant to be played, and so I didn't know that they would have this kind of big controller thing, and, of course, like you said, in another area, there are, for 1 coin, you can play a few rounds of different, games from the different systems. But it was so fun to try these different levels. They had preset games like or like yeah, a preset of games, like maybe for each system, maybe 3 games to choose from or different levels from the game. When we were waiting to play the first one we played was the NES, the Nintendo Entertainment System, and I think you and I were kind of watching people playing Mario 64 a little bit, and it looked like that was the only game available, but you had, like, maybe 3 different areas from the game that you had to do, and it was fun to see the people because I think the people who chose that one were always really good at it. And then
Yeah.
so they were doing it pretty expertly, like, sliding under the thwomp's legs and, to get the hits in real quick, but when it was our turn to play the NES to do Super Mario Brothers 1-1 and 1-2, I think, it was fun to just, I was the D-pad at the beginning and then the buttons later on and, just to remember this is how the level goes, and I think we thought, "Should we go down the warp pipe or not, or should we just, go to the level the normal way?" And it was pretty good.
Do you think I could share the pictures Nintendo
Oh, that'd
posted? Do
be
you think
really
that's
fun.
alright to do? Because I have
Yeah,
them.
yeah, for sure, yeah.
Okay.
That's the other neat thing that I think per exhibit that you do, even the batting cages, they give you
Yeah.
these, it's about this quality, but they give you 3 photos from each session,
Yeah.
and the neat thing is that they blur the people's faces out
Yeah.
too, so
Right,
real
respect the
careful.
privacy of the
Mhm,
other
mhm.
get visitors. So, yeah, this is when doing the buttons and Barney's doing the D-pad. I think we were kind of in a groove when we were in this
Mm,
configuration a little bit, and
this was very
I
good
must
for
be a
us, yeah.
better button person than a D-pad person, because then when we switched, I when I switched over to here, it was
Yeah.
not going as well.
As well. We still got a fine score, but yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
1-1 was
The old
really
school
meant for
skills
us,
are
yeah.
still there, but, like, you have to
Mhm.
find your groove, with your partner,
Yeah.
and so,
Yeah, exactly, because you have to
uh
communicate so
Yeah. So, and then
That
here are some of the pictures I had mentioned about the love tester. And this is
yeah.
one of the activities Katie and I were doing where you have to pop balloons with a wand that has a pointy
Uh-huh.
star
And I
and
think
then,
not pop the bombs, maybe,
yeah,
yeah.
and not pop the bombs, right? And then
Mhm.
this one we had to
Yeah,
connect
plug things in.
electric cables to the
Yeah.
plug to the right ones.
Mhm.
And then this one you had to avoid these big grindy saw
Yeah,
blades.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then here's Barney and I holding the big Wii remote, which after the
Yeah,
fact, I
that was
kind of
good.
realized the way I was holding it, Barney was bearing all the weight. And I was moving around, and he's like, "Oh, this is getting heavy." And I'm like,
Sure.
"Oh, I didn't realize I'm kind of like pushing and twisting it, and you're holding all the weight." But it's just so fun how they designed
Mhm.
those really
Mhm.
to scale to this big scale, but like accurate
Yeah.
looking.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then here's the We Fit balance board, and that was just so fun. You could
Oh,
lean and
yeah.
pick up,
Yeah.
your feet or move to the edge of the board, and you can see I'm trying real hard to lean, and we were trying to get marbles to go down these
Right.
these
Yeah.
holes. And what is that? Do
Yeah.
you know what that game is from? Or that mini game?
I'm not
Where
sure what it's called, but it's from We Fit You,
it is?
and
Okay.
but I'm not sure what the name of that one is exactly, but it's way different with 2 people, and it was really fun to it's how throughout all of it, it's all about cooperation and kind of communicating and working together to get the games to work, and it's really so neat that they came up with this idea for the exhibit. And one thing that the staff were so nice, the guy that so we went here 2 separate times, and the guy that we was helping us second time, they ask you, what system do you wanna play? And then they really right away have a sense of the line. And then in our case for the Wii and then for the Wii U, they're like, "Oh, yeah, okay, go line up, right, you're next in line," especially for the Wii U one. And he was so really kind to us, and he really seemed to enjoy what he was doing and enjoy, just talking with us, museum goers. And he's like, "Hey, you're back again." And we're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "What are you up to now?" And we're like, "Wii U." He's like, "Come this way."
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, he had a big smile, and when we
Mhm.
told him what we wanted, I guess that one wasn't in high demand, so he's like, "Yeah,
No.
come on through."
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No waiting and all, yeah. And it was really fun. Yeah.
It is. So maybe for any our listeners, if you're doing the interactive giant controllers,
Mhm.
consider the different lines and
Yeah,
how much of a weight there is. And if you
right.
could enjoy a system where there's a shorter line, it could
Oh,
be
yeah.
worth it because then you could
Mhm.
get more activities and not have that waiting time. So for sure, I like that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm a huge, huge, huge fan of Super Mario World, but I didn't feel like I had to play it at the
Yes,
big controller, and
I
that one
agree.
probably had the longest line.
I agree.
So I didn't
Yeah.
feel like I was really happy with just a little, old school, and then the really fun Wii U and the Wii one. I'm glad that we did this, and the elderly couple that were in front of us for the Wii U,
Oh man,
or
they
not
were
the Wii U,
good.
but the regular Wii one,
Yeah,
flying the airplane around Woohoo Island, getting the balloons, they
they
killed
were
it.
awesome. They
They may
killed
have
it.
been I don't know if there has been a higher score than their high school for
It's
them.
like they were getting some serious
Oh, maybe,
recognition.
yeah.
The score thing was like, "Dun, dun, dun, dun,
Yeah,
dun,
right,
dun."
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
That would
that
be
was
kinda cool if there was a way, if you did extremely, extremely well, you
mhm,
could earn a coin that way or so some way to,
yeah,
but yeah,
mhm. That's
some
a nice
reward.
idea. That's a nice idea.
But
Mhm,
no, that was really fun.
mhm.
Could we talk a little bit about the batting cages too? I
Oh,
have
yeah.
some pictures
Mhm,
of those.
mm,
Let me
mhm, mhm,
show that here. So here's one of the ones that Nintendo sent to me of me in the batting cage,
mhm.
and you can kind of see you're what is that 10 feet back from the or
Yeah,
12,
that makes sense.
somewhere something
Uh-huh,
like that
uh-huh.
from the
Mhm,
where the ball will come and then try to take a swing. And then here's a
mhm.
perspective from you,
Ah,
Barney,
yeah,
when
there
you're
you
about
go.
to swing and you
Mhm.
can see where the machine is that's going to shoot the ball. So it's the same one that I mean, a version of the one
Yeah, yeah.
that they had out in the display, and you can see the dishes and the other things in the room. And as you hit the balls, it activates the different, like that shelf. I think was one. If you hit it,
Yeah.
it would. tip downward, and I think this
Right.
is worth it. I would recommend the batting cages, and,
Mhm.
um,
Mhm.
I don't do you remember if they were 1 or 2 coins for
I
that
think it
one?
was either 1 or 2, and
Yeah.
the funny thing is that when you're done, there's a broom, and then they like the sign actually it pops up and it says, "Okay, time to clean up." Like,
Yeah.
they expect you, that's the polite thing to do, but they do expect you to clean up afterwards too.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
And then you can see at the bottom of the picture there's a little hole where the balls kind of return to,
Yes.
and then you're
Just
expected to sweep them away, so it was really fun.
yes, that's right. That's a great kind of expectation for guests to tidy up after
Mhm.
yourself, and
Mhm, mhm.
good thing to remember. So, and then it's important probably to say, I think maybe were there 4 maybe or 5 different themed rooms you could do. We just had time to do really one, but
Yes, yeah,
I
yeah,
I think
you can
each room
kinda
had a
see to the
slightly
side in
different
this picture.
aesthetic.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
which is pretty cool. Yeah. So the interactive exhibits were really fun. I think people are gonna enjoy spending a lot of time at
Mhm.
in that part of the museum. Should
Mhm.
we talk a little bit about the history floor a little
Yeah.
bit?
Yep.
Was there more that you
Mhm.
wanted to say about the interactive part before we move on?
No, I'll just share one photo
Oh, yeah,
since
please, please.
that I had. It's funny, I actually also prepared photos from the love meter, but you got
Oh, yeah,
basically
please.
the same ones that I had. But here's the other perspective of the Wii remote. Um,
Oh,
and
fun.
then
I love
yeah,
that.
and then that's they may have had 2 different that's right, they had 2 games for the Wii remote one, and I think, like, one of them, like, you're tipping, like, a stack of people or something. Even the staff, when he described it to us, he's like, "It's kind of weird." And then he's like, "The other
Okay.
one, flying an airplane." And we're like, "Okay." Plus, Woohoo Island is just so cool to go around
It
anyway.
is cool. That was a
Yeah.
good choice
Mhm.
because there's
Mhm.
so many remote focused games on the Wii that they could have picked from, but that was a perfect one for
Yeah.
2 people
Mhm.
steering a flying,
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
airplane, so for sure.
Yeah. But yeah, so that kind of covers the bottom floor of the museum. And then the nice thing is that, it's easy to exit and go back in. And then when you do wanna go back in, in our case, we were lucky that the person who took our picture with the toads, she recognized us and she's like, "Oh, come on in," because otherwise we thought, "Oh, do we have to listen to the lecture again about
Right,
do's and don'ts?" But
right.
yeah, in that case, if you just, like, kind of get the staff's attention and say, "I've already been through here," then they'll just let you get back in and then go back into the main area of the museum again.
That's right. And since we couldn't take any photos of the upper area, I do wanna share some pictures I took of the model they provide.
Oh,
Outside
yeah.
the
Mhm.
store, they have a little
Mhm.
miniaturized, yeah, I guess you'd say model of the
Yeah.
museum,
Mhm.
and that's the only picture you could take that would somewhat show what the upper floor is like.
Mhm. Mm.
And so
Yeah,
here it
that's great.
is, and, I have a second picture of it that I'm gonna zoom in on, but this first one just shows all 3 buildings
Mhm.
and the main courtyard as though it's an aerial view, so you can look down
Mhm.
on the mosaics on that section that Barney and I were talking about earlier, as well as the buildings. But fortunately, they have in this model the second floor of the
Mhm.
museum. They took the
Mhm.
roof off of the model, so you can look down on that second floor, that historical section, and you can take a picture of the model. And so you can see here in the model that there
Mhm.
are a variety of display cases set up, and each display case captures the console library and unique console that Nintendo produced from a certain era, and they have all of them here. And then on the back of the display cases, it's another console from a different era. So between
Yeah.
the double-sided cases, you get a full historical overview of the products Nintendo's made and the box art for those products in all of its variants between the North American, Japanese, and the PAL
Yeah.
region
Mhm.
versions of the games, European region of the games. And then you get special editions of consoles, unique promo products that they did. Like, for example, the 3DS had a game cartridge that could only be used in the Louvre museum in Paris that had, things about the exhibits, and they had that cartridge there. There was Nintendo used to own the Seattle Mariners. They still own a portion of the team. There was a special DS cartridge that you could order hot dogs with and other things when you're in the stadium, that type of thing. Like there are all these Easter eggs and special edition cartridges integrated with these displays. So you're not only getting the history, but you're getting these one of a kind things that you wouldn't find elsewhere. And then all around the outside of the museum, you can see in this picture the walls in the top and to the right and left. There are other unique displays, and I remember some of those had third-party characters like Mega Man and Pokemon and, like, not just first-party Nintendo characters, but they drew in other series. They had one area where you could look through these little eyepieces and see what it would be like to use a Virtual Boy, which is the old, attempt Nintendo made to do 3D early on and, different fun things. But the kicker for me, and this is like, you know, the one item, if I could own anything out of this whole historical area, they had an arcade cabinet of Sky Skipper, which
Oh,
is the only one in the world. It was originally housed in North America in a video game, company. I'm forgetting which one now, and they had a special, like, archive room, and then they lent it, or maybe they donated it at this point, I don't know, to
sure.
Nintendo to put in this
Mhm,
museum, but
mhm,
really interesting to see something that's the only one in the whole world. I think that was great that they displayed that. So that game, Sky Skipper, was not a hit in the arcades, as you can imagine, if it's
mhm,
almost forgotten in history, but, they had
mhm,
that cabinet there, and they re-released the game on the Arcade Archive series, by Hamster on the Nintendo Switch, so you can still play it to this day if you wanna, dig into an old
mhm,
historical relic. So,
mm,
but anyway,
mhm.
Barney, what are your thoughts as you look at this kind of model of the upper floor?
Yeah, it's so neat that they have that available, and it's quite accurate what they have there, and, yeah, it was nice that, like you said, to see the different box art per region, and it was interesting to see how some of them were kind of the same for all 3, and some of them were pretty different, the way that they look, and I think maybe the and then there was one area where they had, like, stuff that wasn't games at all, but it was, like, the different toys and things like that that they made, and I think they even had a few old commercials running for those old toys. So, again, kind of referencing that one photo that you had, they also had a photo or the actual device of it's kind of like a periscope that like, you could use just to, like, see up above, and then in the video, in the commercial that they had, it was, some a family is traveling in a car, and there's a big traffic jam, and the mom and dad are wondering, why is all this traffic here? And then the two boys are using this periscope to look far ahead, and then, oh, hey, like about a kilometer away, there's been an accident. Oh no, and then that's why we're delayed. And then, oh, okay. But that was so neat but I think my super favorite thing in there was the kind of prototype area. So I think maybe in
Yes, good call.
the same area of the cabinet games, they had the prototype. And they I mean, like, I think what became the Wii U gamepad, you could kind of say it was like the forerunner of the Switch because it was a monitor with 2 Wii remotes strapped to the side. And
Wow.
that's kind of really what the Switch is, a monitor with 2 remotes that can be used, to play games or motion sensitive. You know, and I think they were probably thinking at that time, how are we going to take this idea that we have and make it into the Wii U? But it could have been the Switch and
Yes.
all of these other different ideas, like these Frankenstein things, that became, that were poo-pooed for one reason or another, but were some of them looked pretty weird, but but it's so neat to see the creative process of how did we get to these what they eventually produced. And some of the controllers, I think that we looked at them together, we thought, boy, those would be hard to use.
Oh, yeah.
But you can look at that and see, oh yeah, that became the 64 controller. That makes total sense. I can see it. That they were just this prototype that they made, it's just a few steps away. And, with a little bit of, testing, a little bit of research and development, and probably feedback from the office staff, who played the games, they're like, yeah, this is close, but how could we improve it? And that was really neat to see. And I can imagine there's probably just a handful of those, or maybe just one of each. I don't know, but those that kind of thing, that's one of the things you could only ever see there at the
Yeah.
museum. And then, like you say, they probably tried real hard to find actual things that were produced, like the exercise bike that connected to the Nintendo Entertainment System. It looked like that one was scuffed up, so that one was probably someone had, and then somehow got sold or found and then put in the museum. And it was pretty neat to see those things that, like, maybe you've not heard of. They were available, but only really people who are really dedicated would even know that they ever existed.
That's right. And I
Mhm.
I wonder if that's partly what drives the policy for no pictures. That's that kind of secrecy of the legacy of
Mm.
development of their products.
Mhm.
And it'll be interesting to see over time how the museum evolves. If they update the displays, if there's more storytelling about the developers, because really the history is there of the products as they're marketed and some of the formation leading up to the products but being launched, but they don't really go into much detail about who the programmers were, the developers were.
Mm.
I mean, we
Mhm.
like Barney said, we there's acknowledgement of certain individuals like Miyamoto. His fingerprints are on the museum, his drawing at the opening. But yeah, so it'll be interesting in time to see if that ever emerges, or if maybe Nintendo as a company just really values the kind of corporate identity and what the company's doing, and they don't really emphasize
Oh, yeah.
much. And I don't know.
Individual,
So
yep. Mhm.
it'll be interesting to see. But
Yeah.
you typically think in a museum where there's, I mean, art or objects that have been created, there's some like deeper, exposition on who the people were who created these things. So I think that could be a potential area of like ripe future exploration for Nintendo. I hope
Mhm.
maybe they explore that. So that could be
Yeah,
good.
one thing I was surprised that they didn't have that kind of seems typical for, like, this type of museum is, like like, kind of a theater area, like, where they
Ah,
have, like, some kind of short video, either,
right.
"This is the history of Nintendo,"
Right.
or "This is how the museum was built," or, something like that. They usually have, like, that's not so uncommon to have, like, a little 5-minute clip, or, where an area off to the side where it's, just for showing that, where people will drop in or not. But that that I wonder if they'll have that eventually, but that's something that I thought that they would have had. That it didn't take anything away that they didn't have it, but I did expect that to be there.
Mm, good point, Barney. Yeah, I that would have been a nice addition. So,
Mhm.
yeah, Nintendo, if you're listening, these are our humble
I know that you
suggestions.
are, yeah.
Yeah, right. That could be considered for future
Yeah.
editions. Well, now that we've talked about the two main floors of the museum, maybe we could take a moment to talk about the gift shop, which
Oh,
was
yeah.
amazing. So, I have some photos to share about the gift
Mhm.
shop. And just as you're heading towards the gift shop, they have some really interesting things. They have a display case just
Yeah.
outside the gift shop full of
Mhm.
guides and books
Mhm.
related to strategy guides and their how to find your way through different games.
Mhm.
Some of
Mhm.
these are quite unique and rare, and it's my understanding that they're from Nintendo's private library, their archives. So the fact that they're
Oh,
displaying
that's
these
cool.
is pretty neat. So if you have a few minutes before going in a shop, or
Mm,
if you're done shopping and you want to just lounge for a bit, you can
mm,
look in this area. It's pretty interesting. And then as you enter the museum, they give you a little foretaste just outside of some
mhm,
things you can get. And right away, I'm like, oh, I like the designs that they have on their
mhm,
main products here.
mhm,
They've selected or pardon me, 5 things. And
mm,
there's a little pixel 8-bit Mario. There's the Ultra Hand. There's the Game Boy. There's the controller for the NES and the Famicom. And then there's Hanafuda cards. And each
mm.
of those 5 images is on their shirts, and they're on their hats,
Yep.
and they're on some other items. So I'm just giving a real quick view of the store. You can
Mhm.
see the variety of, of displays, like from all I would say, in a way, this is focused on the consoles, because if you go in a
Right.
Nintendo store in like New York or Tokyo, a lot of times you'll see a lot of merchandise about the characters. But I really feel like this location really was zoomed in on the consoles, because you can
Mm,
see shirts,
mhm.
mugs, you can see pens, like little notepads, like all for each and every console they've created. Even the Virtual Boy has a shirt and a mug. I mean, who would have thought,
Mhm.
So this really, I think, is focusing on their consoles and their consumer products. And so you see in this picture, the Ultra Hand is in there,
Oh, yeah.
and you can see here. I like this display. I really love the
I have
blue and the
that photo
red
too.
of the
Yes,
the
me
Wii
too.
U and the Switch
Mhm.
right beside each other. And so really well done. And here are some pictures of stickers that you could buy, sticker kits. They come in a little box that's a miniaturized version of what the original console box would have been when you bought the console. And I love that they do that with the sticker sets.
It's so
And then,
clever.
isn't that
Yeah.
clever? And
Mhm.
then down below, you have the Hanafuda art style, but with Mario characters on cups and towels. I
Mhm.
I, I don't know if you would call them like a washcloth size or a kitchen
Mm.
cloth. I know Barney and I we tried to buy. They had a set of 4, and we each guest was only allowed to buy one.
Yeah. Mhm.
But they're really neat. So
Mhm. Mhm.
and then here is an example of a set of Hanafuda cards.
Oh, yeah.
So I actually bought this set, and
Mhm.
so when I stop sharing my screen, I'll hold up the actual physical set here in a minute. But
Mhm.
really beautiful. And here's another display case with hats and dishes. I bought this dish set of these 5 dishes, and I'll hold them up here in just a moment.
Mm.
Really fun with those 5 focus pieces that I talked about
Mhm.
earlier.
Mhm.
And then we had the
Oh,
same
yeah.
mindset.
No, because
You
when we got to the gift shop, we just kind of went our own ways
Right.
around. Then we circled back around and met up, and I was like, "Hey, look at this mug." Wait a minute, here, look at this mug. And then Katie was probably not at all surprised that we were thinking this much
Oh, yeah.
alike at the time.
Yeah, for sure. It was awesome. So, yeah, we both have the Wii U console, and I think it's safe to say we're both fans. That's a
Mhm.
fun system. I'm
Oh,
really glad
yeah.
Nintendo made that, even though, it has been overshadowed by the Switch. It has some really unique
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
quirky elements that make it really fun. So,
Yeah, and I love that blue. That's a great
oh,
color.
that blue is fantastic.
Mhm.
Yeah. And then this is where you would pay for your items. You needed to present your museum entrance card to them,
Right.
and then they were really courteous. And
Yeah.
Barney suggested, I'm really glad you did this. You can ask for extra bags from the
Yep.
museum. They make nice
Mhm.
gifts for people because the bags have that art that we were talking about earlier with the
Yeah.
5 components of like Nintendo history. And so it's really neat to check out and to get. They gave those extra bags. They were really helpful. And then just outside, I noticed this Easter egg right above the edge of the store, Donkey Kong there with his barrels getting ready to pound and pound there. So it was such a delightful time, and we could then
Mhm.
just sit and look about at our purchases and talk about it
Mhm. Mm.
and bask in the enjoyment of the moment. So
Mhm. Mhm.
yeah. So but anyway, so Barney and I talked about these items. Here's what they
Oh,
look like
yeah.
from another angle. Here's the Wii
Mhm.
U mug, and you'll notice it has 2012 on it, the year
Mhm.
the Wii U
Mhm.
launched. And then on the bottom,
On the
it
bottom?
has a little
Too bad.
miniaturized Wii U. So,
So cool.
and with the Wii U logo. So really, really fun. Here's the dish set. I'm going to hold up here, and each
Mhm.
dish has its own pattern. And then on the back,
Oh,
it has the Nintendo logo with the gray background like you see in the
yeah.
museum. And so here is the one with the controllers
Mhm.
and the Ultra Hand, a little 8-bit Mario,
Oh, yeah.
and of course the Game Boy.
Oh, it's neat. Oh,
and
yeah.
and then the Hanafuda card set is really nice. It comes in this gray box,
Oh,
and
yeah.
then it just to show you a sense of scale. It's probably hard to read these characters as I'm holding
Mhm.
it up here,
Mhm.
but it has a a smaller within the box, a much smaller
Yeah.
plastic case, and these cards are quite small. They're
Mhm.
not the size of a typical playing card. I'm going to hold up a
Oh.
few here just
Mhm.
to give you a sense of the scale.
Right.
But this here would be the size. And
Yeah.
so you can see as I hold it in my hand, it's probably about what would you say, a half or a third the size of a regular playing card?
Yeah, kind of
Um,
like if you cut a playing card in half horizontally and then
yes,
switch that on its side.
that's a
Mhm.
good way to think about it. So here's some of the art is really intricate and it
Mhm.
has some gold accents and
Oh, yeah,
it's
that's really nice.
quite pretty. And then, the final thing that Barney and I got that we were started off with were our
Oh,
trusty
okay.
hats.
Oh, I know.
These hats are great. I think they're very comfortable.
Mhm.
I've been enjoying that a lot. So yeah. So anyway, Barney, what I've been talking so much. I want to give you a chance now to share if you have any thoughts about the store that you gift
Yeah,
shop.
it's funny, my photos, I also had the same one, you and me with the cup, and then that photo of the Switch section and the
Oh
Wii U
yeah,
section, because that red and blue looks so good together,
it
the way that
does.
they
It really
lined that up,
does.
but it was and I really appreciated your kind of overall photo that you had to get a sense of what it looks like, but yeah, I think, like, when we were going through the museum and we were doing the interactive exhibits, we saw a few people with bags of different sizes, and then I thought, "Well, that's kinda weird. Why'd they go to the museum or the gift shop already?" And then we realized that some I think in our case, only one thing sold out, and we went on a Saturday, so we went on a
Mhm.
weekend,
Yeah.
and our admission was 2 o'clock, I think.
Mhm.
So we're in the and it's open till 6. We were in the last I think maybe the last entrance time is maybe 4:30 to 5 might be the very last one, or
Okay.
maybe 4 to 4:30, but we were near the tail end. The only thing that had sold out was, like, cookies, I think.
Mm.
And then, like you said, the one thing to keep in mind is that I like that they do this in a way, but for everything that they have, you can only buy one of something. So, you can't buy like 5 of the same Wii U mugs.
Right.
But in Jacob's case, he and Katie both had a ticket, so he could buy 2 of some things. And then for that reason, we kind of thought that we could get, one of each design of the towel, but they were saying, only of the 4 designs of one size, you can only get one. So you could make a set by getting, I think they had 4 different sizes of towels, so you could get a set in that way, but you couldn't get one complete set of the same size of towels. So, and then another thing that was kind of interesting is they had little controller keychains, and they were just they had 2 styles. Like, the first half, like, maybe from 83 to 92 maybe, and then the second half, kind of the more modern version, and then the other ones. And then I asked the staff, "Is there a way to check?" Like, "There's a certain one that I want," and she's like, "No, it's random." So, in that way, it kind of since you can only buy one, you would kind of think maybe there could be a way to check, but there wasn't. But I got one of each, and I got the ones I gave them to Yuma and Silas, but we got the ones that I was hoping for.
Oh,
So
nice.
Yuma got he wanted the older version, and he got the Famicom, controller, which is
Nice.
hooked onto his backpack, so I don't have it right here. But then I wanted the GameCube controller, which I think is just one of the best controllers
It is.
for design wise. And then
Wow.
Silas this is his, and he really appreciates it. And then, kind of speaking of things that like the games, like you mentioned about like the notes and whatnot, and so I decided to get this cartridge, against Super Mario World,
So
and
fun.
it's so neat because it looks like a cartridge, and then you open it up, and inside is a notepad, and use it for writing, on the back. You can write, it's just a little scene there of Mario on Yoshi about to eat a Koopa, and that's kind of just blue. And then on the front is a scene from the Super Mario World game with a bullet bill and Mario jumping and whatnot. And then you use that to write notes to your friends. And 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 then I was also thinking, I had a lot in mind about my kids, and then so we're all big fans of Zelda, and so I got some pins, and this was nice that you could get. There wasn't a limit. You could get, like, if because I even asked when I was having trouble with the towels. I was like, wait a minute, I'm allowed to buy, this Hylian shield pin and also this Korok pin, but I'm not allowed to buy two different towels. And they're like, oh well, it was written there, and I was like, okay, yeah, fine, but the kids love them and they wear them all the time. And then they
That's
get
awesome.
compliments about them. Oh, that's a nice little shield that you have. Maybe people don't really recognize it, but they think that it's neat. And I think I'll probably this is just the box and
Yes.
of the Wii U bug, and I still have inside the box is empty boxes. So
Oh, I love it.
so
Yeah.
I'm gonna keep my
Mhm.
this is from the keychain, that
Um,
it could have been it could have been the Switch, it could have been the gamepad, it could have been the DS or the 3DS or the Game Boy Advance in this one, and you wouldn't know. And I don't think I'll throw any of this trash
no, no.
away. It's my treasure,
Yes.
as the saying goes. And yeah, so then when I was there, my mindset was, I might not be able to come back, and so I'm just gonna kind of, and the prices were very reasonable.
Mhm. Yes.
And I thought, I need a thermos, and so I got this kind of nice thermos. When I saw all the detailed, because at first I thought it was just a silver thermos, flask, but it has like the different controllers on
Oh,
it,
wow. Oh,
and
that's nice.
yeah, and I think it's mostly the controllers that's on it, and I needed a new one, and I needed something that was a little bit bigger size, and the price was very reasonable. And then the one thing that I don't really felt that I splurged on it, because I also needed a seat and, for playing games. And so I have my friend Glummy here. Glummy, the Yuma tells me he's a Goombro, and I thought he was just a stuffed
Uh,
animal, and, like, I touched his head, and I was like, "That's really hard," and I thought, "Oh, it's a seat." And then so I thought, "Well, if you're gonna play games with kids, you need a seat,"
yes,
and
yes.
that also was not very expensive for what it is, and for the fact that you
Nice.
could never find that anywhere else. But and then I think maybe you and I were both thinking about the stuffed controllers, which were also quite big, and I wanted an SNES one, and then I saw the price tag on that, and that and a simple long sleeve T-shirt. Those were a little bit more than what
Mm,
I kind of thought that
yes.
I could s- justify buying.
Yes.
So I didn't get those, but I felt cost performance wise and style wise, and you and I, we both like hats. I like hats, and having this hat, you know maybe it's a pride thing, but if someone sees this hat, they're like, oh wow, that guy went to the museum. You know the things that you can only get there, and the fact that you can only get one of them. I think it's pretty rare that anyone would want to buy something and then sell it again, because
Yes.
of just how it's hard to get there, and then everything there kind of has some special meaning to you, and you can only buy one of it. And so I really like that. And I'm really going to, treat these things well and take care of them, and, be glad that I have them. Still am very glad that I have them. And yeah, it's neat for the whole experience, the gift shop. I feel like the whole thing is all of the museum is really with the customer in mind, I think, with the museum goer in mind. It's not a case where, you hop off the ride and you're bombarded with all of these, potential things that you feel like, you should, maybe you should buy, five of these and four of these, and, buy this and buy that and buy that and buy this. It's all just, laid out there for us. And, it just feels that it feels like they're not doing the museum to make money from it. They're not doing the museum, to be this big thing. They're doing the museum for us, and they're meeting us halfway at the gift shop too. Things could have been way overpriced, but or much more. The price tags could have been way higher, but they weren't. And it's all great quality and really nice and a great, just great. What else can I
Yes.
say? Yeah.
I think that's a perfect summary,
Yeah.
Barney, and I would concur with you. It was really a nice blend of activity and learning and celebration and just the intentionality that went into the space and how they had so many Easter eggs to enjoy and chocked full of fun and interesting facts, and then the gift shop at the end was a perfect way to end the experience with some great collectibles to take away. And so, yes, 2 thumbs up from me. I'm sensing 2 thumbs up from you.
Oh,
Is
yeah.
that yeah? And then would you go back again?
Oh, yeah. And and then I will say real quick that the reason that you and I knew about how to get back into the museum is that we too, we thought, "Oh, it's already 4:30. Maybe we should get some shopping done just in case." And then we did our shopping, then we went back, and then
Mm,
it wasn't a burden to have our stuff with us, again,
right.
because the museum is laid out in a way and organized in a way that there's never too many people there at once.
Yes. Good point.
But yeah, I would really like to go back. And then I always wonder, I don't know, like I would be okay with this if there's I don't know if there is, but if there's a system where like they try to let everyone go at least one time before someone gets a chance to get it to go again. I don't know if I would apply with the same Japanese account, if it would be a strike against me or not. I don't know, but even so, next time that I do apply, I'll probably use my American Nintendo account just in case. But I would love to go again. I would love to have the chance for Yuma and Silas to be able to go there and enjoy it too.
Is there anything that you would do differently your second time there? Or a section you'd like to explore more if you had a second
Mm.
opportunity?
Yeah, I mean, they do have the workshop,
Oh,
um,
right.
that we didn't look into, but I think that one thing you could do is make your own Hanafuda cards. I think they
Right.
have it looked like they have a stencil maybe, and then you design the cards on your own, and that too wasn't outrageous. I think that was very, very reasonably priced, and I think it would just be a case of availability. And then they had the cafe, but I think it's just and then even outside, in our case, it was a little bit rainy. It was a bit
Right.
rainy on our day, but in our case, that it would be neat to go on a nice mild day and then just sit outside a bit and just enjoy the atmosphere of being there. And but I think if we went again, I'd probably do a lot of those games again together with the kids too, and I think it would just be a lot of fun.
Barney, if you do end up going again and you have the time, even if you don't eat in the cafe. Would you go
Mm.
into the cafe further than we did? We peeked in at the beginning
Mhm.
and didn't and
Mhm.
didn't really spend much time there because we weren't wanting to eat there. We just kind of wanted to
Mm.
see it, and then we left. But if we'd gone a little bit deeper, there's a beautiful
Mhm.
Legend of Zelda themed stained glass window that I found out about after the fact, and I think
Oh, really?
I don't know if it's in the Wind Waker art style. I think it might be, or it's in
Mhm.
some one of the unique art styles, and I just thought if you go back again, you might
Oh,
enjoy
yeah.
that, and
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
do happen to do that, if you snap a shot of that,
Ah,
I'd love to.
oh,
I've seen a few pictures
oh,
of it
yeah.
online, but I
Really?
just love to hear your thought.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
in the actual dining area, they have a few places where you can sit, and one of them is made up of the old crates that they use for
The
shipping out their
pallets.
product, the
Mhm.
pallets. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I thought that was kind of a nice
That was
touch,
neat. Mhm.
since this
Mhm.
is built over the area where they had done that work with those
The
pallets
warehouse.
and shipping.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
but yeah, well, fantastic. Well, what a delight. And are there any final comments that you'd like to share before we close our time about the Nintendo Museum?
Yeah, just thinking about people who might be coming to Japan from overseas, and then you're trying to fit as much of Kyoto in as you can, it would, especially if your tickets are in the afternoon, I would recommend going to the Byodoin. It's it's kind of a temple that's not far from there. Go there first. It's there's a 10 yen coin here in Japan. I don't have one nearby, but that is on the back of the 10 yen coin, so it's a pretty major place. And then the area that it is Uji, and it's very famous for matcha, for like the really intense kind of green tea. And I think you could find a lot of interesting, not that there's any one specific place, but you could find a lot of matcha things like parfaits and ice cream, and then of course matcha itself there. But but yeah, for the museum itself, I think we stayed 2.5 hours or 3 hours or so, and
Yes.
the time just
Yes.
flew
It
by.
did.
But we felt really fulfilled.
For sure. For
You
sure.
know, I mean, some people might be struggling through jet lag while they're there, but not myself. And I just felt, wow, that was just so fulfilling and satisfactory.
I
And
agree.
yeah, if you have the chance to go there, it's really worth it.
Yeah, well, thanks so much, Barney. I appreciate that, and I agree with what you shared. I really cherished my time there. It was so fun to go with you and with my wife, Katie. And if I ever had the opportunity to go again, I would go in a heartbeat. I think it's fantastic. And definitely, if a person is going to be traveling to Japan, this could be 100% worth putting on their agenda items to do if it fits in the general area where they'll be.
Mhm.
But I'm so grateful for this chance to explore it today with you, Barney. Thanks for taking time to do this. And I'll hand it over to you to close our episode.
Yes, we are so grateful for all of you who tuned in, maybe first time to hear more about the museum, but thanks for sticking with us. And it's been a great time talking about this, reliving the memories, and maybe if you've had the chance to go as well, maybe you've kind of felt the same way that we did. But yeah, and then if not, well, remember, plan ahead at least 3 months for applying for tickets. We hope that you get them. And so for the Two World Podcast, I am Barney with my co-host Jacob, and we hope that you, as we are looking forward to the next episode very much. And we'll see you then. Goodbye.